Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I figured I'd just check in, man. Hope everybody's having a great night. I'm having a pretty good night, even though I was frustrated with the Apple Music app, trying to make a playlist as always, and just wasn't having any success with the app itself. So it made the situation much longer, but I've gone through that 100 times or more, to be completely honest with you. No exaggeration at all. But anyway, I hope everybody's having, again, a great night. I was thinking about some points that I've already made. Unfortunately, it's one of those situations where I'm just starting to realize that the landscape of the NBA right now, essentially, I almost see it as a mistake to make a trade right now for really anybody because of the inflated prices of all of these different assets after the Rudy Gobert trade, as we've talked about a million times. But I think the point, the point that I'm zeroing in on, or the realization that I'm coming to, is it's almost a mistake to make a trade because you don't know the value of the young players that could potentially be available or not available accordingly, you know, which is a point I've made a couple times, as I've said. But it's like, I think that's why we're not only not seeing any moves right now, but probably won't see any moves until the beginning of training camp, until teams have a chance to get a look at these kids next to the players that they're going to be playing with, and get a chance to basically evaluate what they're going to be, or at least over evaluate or misevaluate, however they're going to do it. But they're going to come to some type of conclusion and then put a price tag on those kids that isn't quite there right now. You know what I mean? Because they're all basically hypothetical pieces. I can look at Ben Mathurin and say he's never going to miss a shot. If I look at highlights of this kid, as long as he continues to shoot jumpers, he may never miss it, right? And I can convince myself of that and sell him at that price. And if I look at all the highlights and I show all the highlights to those who are looking at what I'm looking at, if I show them what I've seen, they may come to the same conclusion, or I could at least try to sell that if I'm good at what I'm doing. If I got the gift of gab, I can talk him up to sound like a Ferrari. Now, I'm not saying the kid ain't a Ferrari. I'm not saying anything about the kid at all, but what I'm telling you is that's where we're at, to where until I see Ben, I could tell you whatever about it. You know what I mean? I can essentially come to any conclusion whatsoever and put a price tag on that. And so that's what everything is priced at, because of the inflated value of said trade. You know what I mean? Now that you've got these price tags in disarray, the young talent that's going to be demanded upon is basically players like Ben Mathurin, players in his age range, this year's draft picks, last year's draft picks, next year's draft picks. That's basically the meat and potatoes of whatever big trade you're going to make. You know, future draft picks and young talent is what everybody wants. So in the event of a forced situation like KD's trade, or an inevitable situation like Donovan Mitchell's trade, you don't make that move, either one of those moves, until you have legitimate price tags on the various pieces that are going to be in demand in the event those trades are made. You see what I'm saying? That's exactly the crux of my point. It's like, until we know what everything else is worth, I can't properly put a price tag on KD. I can't properly put a price tag on Donovan Mitchell, right? And then give the very serious negotiating practices of Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz, who are in possession of Donovan Mitchell's rights. It makes it even less likely that you'll see something done, because he's driving a hard bargain just by nature. That's just his brand. So it's like, all right, if that's the guy who's had one of the main pieces to be moved, you know, the field is going to be very hesitant to move those pieces that I've talked about, which are going to be on demand, until they know exactly what it is they have. So yeah, these dog days of summer, this is going to drag out. And the only thing that I think can change that is the desperation of certain teams to make moves that'll make their teams more cohesive. And unfortunately, the team that comes to mind the most is ours, my very own Los Angeles Lakers. We really do have to do something. or we don't, and we'll start the season with a broken team. That's not the end of the world at all, because you can arrange our pieces to get something good, especially if Anthony Davis is healthy, LeBron James is healthy. We're going to win games anyway. We're just going to have to shrink our bench until we're able to make certain moves, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on us, particularly Bron and AD, to stay healthy. So I don't like that dynamic for my team, and I'm pretty sure if I dig deep into other team situations, you'll see a similar dynamic. Teams whose timelines don't quite add up just yet. The problem is, teams like that, for example, Utah, they don't really care what happens so long as they're losing, because they want to tank for victory. Which does work in the Lakers' favor, because there will be so many other teams that want to lose. We'll probably be able to sneak in the playoffs just by sheer nature, that we want to win while others don't. And that there's a play-in tournament in place. So even if we're our broken team, even if we don't necessarily have the greatest roster, I think we can make the playoffs this year. It's more likely we are able to than last, because nobody was tanking for the draft picks in this year's previous season. So you definitely saw guys going forward. Teams that were applying to make the playoffs had no intention of bowing out. So that will change. All teams, I'd imagine, will be willing to bow out if they have their own pick. And those who don't have their pick will probably be forcing their way into the play-in tournament. And you can pretty much see that coming, because that just makes sense. So certain things about this upcoming season I can tell you are up for grabs, but other things are set in stone. One thing that is set in stone is the Utah Jazz, the San Antonio Spurs, Indiana Pacers. There may be a few others. Will not make the playoffs. They don't want to make the playoffs. They have no interest in any playoffs. I'm telling you right now, if you're a part of their fan base, you got a season ahead that's going to entail a forced losing. Now, I'm not saying they're going to lose every game, or that is actually the best strategy to get the first pick in the draft, because we know that they've switched it up to where it is no longer the case. Even if you have the worst record, you still have even odds with the two teams ahead of you. So it's one of those situations where we'll see how it plays out. We'll see. But one thing that I've been listening to, just to talk about a rumor, I guess, that I'm listening to, Julius Randle. It seems that the Lakers may have interest in acquiring his contract. Allegedly, and I say allegedly, but that's not the right word. The rumor is the front office sees him as a piece that we can bring in and keep long term. I think they look at him as a replacement for LeBron James. I think that's what that is, because they let him go because they didn't think he could play with Bron. And if they're bringing him back long term, it's probably because they don't think Bron's going to stay. It's probably because they think he's going to be someone we can immediately bring back in the event that Bron skedaddles. It's a safe play. I think it's safe in the sense that you stay good, because Julius is a good player, and you'll have Anthony Davis on tap for another couple years, in theory, although there's no guarantee he'll want to stay after that. And then you'll also have whatever player you're about to pay. Hopefully that's Kyrie Irving in our case. So our team will be good. Have young talent that should be getting older, guys like Pippen and all those guys. Hopefully we still have them. They should be getting better. So that kind of thing, I don't think is a bad consolation prize if that's what we're trying to do. But if we're just trying to bring him in on top of Bron, why did we let him go in the first place? That would be the question I have. Or even more so, why did we let him go in the manner that we did and not getting anything for him in the first place? But that's a separate conversation entirely. I know the answer to that question is because we were doing him a solid. We were letting him out of this situation to go chase down free agency. So for that, I applaud the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think it would be why he would be willing to come back to us. On top of the fact that it's Los Angeles and LA is a really nice place to live. And Juju has ties out here already in that regard. So I can see him return to LA. I would love for him to return on a different price tag, because that contract is one of the worst, if not the worst, out there. But as long as he's playing at his best, he's going to be a good player, man. He's reliable. He's sturdy. That's the thing about Julius. You talk about guys that you wonder if they're going to make it through the season, if they're going to play through the season. if Julius doesn't have a major injury like a broken something, he's gonna make it through the season. His genetics are gonna allow him to bull through just about anything. He's built for that. So that's what I like about Julius the most. He's gonna make decisions that you're gonna get frustrated with. He has to grow in his basketball IQ. We know that. That's not his strongest suit, but where he has issues there, he makes up in athleticism, power, strength, and ultimately really, really good court vision, which I think is underutilized probably in New York. He's somebody who can give you triple-double on a really good night and regularly if you put the ball in his hands. So Julius has tapped into his best self 2 years ago. We know what he can do. He shot over 40% from behind the arc. It was amazing. And then he regressed back to his old self the very next year, and now we don't know who he is. But at the end of the day, that's our youngster. We drafted him. We developed him. And I would be happy to have him back at a more reasonable price. My God, please, a more reasonable price. I would much rather us let that contract do what it's going to do, and then let's try to get him back after that contract is over with. That's what I would prefer. So that's like, what, 4 years from now, 5 years from now? No problem. That's what I'm shooting for in regards to my boy Juju. A return 2028. And as long as he's on that contract, I'm cool, y'all. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm cool. I'm just not a fan of it. But I am a fan of the player, though. Definitely. Just so long as you supplement his weaknesses with players who can do the things that he can't, just like everybody else. So I think his synergy with Anthony Davis, having played with 1 year with him, could be pretty interesting. You know, if for some reason they do reunite. But as long as Bron is on this team, no Juju. No Juju. That's not the player you pay next to Bron. That makes no sense at all. So just wanted to bring that to you guys, give you guys my little 2 cents on the situation. Because honestly, I know what the Lakers are thinking because they are consistent with how they think. They want to bring people back. You know what I mean? Everybody that they have on the team is people that they've had before. You know, last year we did that with older players. This year we're doing it with some of our bigs. It's just what we do. We like familiarity. So that's on par and on brand. But yeah, that's what it is. There's some other things as well going on. Armani Brooks was waived from the Rockets, and some young guard. I think it would be someone interesting for teams to bring in, see if he could do something for you. Just a little something that came to mind. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. There is news for sure. Like, people are getting signed. You got coaches and things like that going to places. But honestly, off the top of my head, none of it's really popping off right now. But that's pretty much what I gotta say, man. BDL 44. Thank you all for watching.